It means a lot to me when I think of the generations that have put in a lot of work over the years. Every generation has done a huge amount of work to leave it in a better state than they took it over.
We've been here for 140 years and I guess that gives a depth of connection that is quite hard to describe.
To have a chance to be the caretaker of this land for my period is a real honour.
We're here for a short time, not a long time, and so any decisions we make, a lot of them will have a long-term impact, and so it's important to be measured.
You know, I guess it comes back to respecting what people have done before us and taking on our responsibility for the time we're here. We were born here, raised here, we work here, and we'll finish here.
Rissington Cattle Company in essence is a business that we've set up to supply beef genetics to the New Zealand and global industry, and just so happens to be as it's a family business as well. Scale of operation, we sort of max out at about 12,000 stock units. We run at about a 75% cattle to sheep ratio. The land area that we operate is around about 1,500 hectares. 1,200 of that is effective.
Farming has changed a lot since we took over in 1970.
Hawke's Bay farmer John Absolom has always been a pioneer. Back in the 1980s, not content with producing top Simmental cattle, he broke new ground by importing frozen embryos from Canada. The offspring fetched record prices and introduced farmers to the idea of widening the gene pool.
Well, John travelled to Canada and the States, and he felt that the cattle he saw in the commercial sense in the feedlots were half-bred Simmental cattle, and he thought it would be very good for the New Zealand cattle industry to have the Simmental here.
My father spent a lot of time over there researching which breed would be best and then imported those cattle to New Zealand. So they were breaking new ground as they did it, and it really put our herd and our brand, the Rissington brand, on the map.
A cattle auction in Hawke's Bay, moment of truth for one of the biggest gambles ever taken in the stud cattle business in New Zealand.
The way that he chose to bring those genes into New Zealand was through AI.
That really got Dad intrigued about crossbreeding. That's kind of what then lay the foundation for the 80s.
We brought in embryos from Bar 5 in Canada, one of the more famous Simmental studs, and so embryo transfer was another, I guess, technology that we deployed in the 80s, and Dad was a big part of how do we get the best genetics into New Zealand. And the great thing is it's a global pool. Wherever the best animals are, we'll go and find them and bring them into New Zealand.
It did take a lot to get the business to where it is today, but it was very rewarding work. John was very proud when he handed over the farm. He felt that he'd got to a stage where we couldn't take it any further, and it was the right time for succession planning, and it needed more technology. It needed their young input, really. We could only take it so far.
Tech has really come in leaps and bounds for the beef industry. It's about trying to actually make change for our beef farmers to be able to be more profitable in an environment that's becoming more and more challenging.
From my perspective, they're at the cutting edge of where we need to be in the beef industry. The technologies and DNA, use of embryos, is part of the technology that's going to shift the beef industry to a new level.
We now know more accurately than ever where these best animals are at a very young age, in fact when they're born. The big opportunity for us today, on top of our current beef business that's performing very well, is the dairy industry, and there's a lot of opportunities for us to scale up without having to increase our land resource here at Rissington, and utilising some of the technologies to deliver bulls into the dairy industry from our innovative commercial customers.
Our business has always been fairly front-loaded, so to invest in breeding and genetics, you're investing years out from when you see the results, and have that culmination of all that investment finish in an auction with completely unknown outcomes based on price and demand just seemed a crazy way to do it, even though it's kind of how the whole industry operates. So we thought, well, how can we change the model? And so we talked about the fact that with some certainty of demand, could even drive a bigger investment up the front end.
Part of moving to that model was securing the knowledge of the number of bulls they require 2 financial years in advance. You know, that system continues to grow, and it gives us the confidence to get on and get it done. Dad passed away a couple of years ago, and the significance was it was on the eve of our annual bull sale. So, you know, we remember him annually, and I'm sure he would be very proud of the sale we had and what we're continuing to deliver. The land and the business have to be working in unison. We haven't always just looked at the business. You know, we were the first property in Hawke's Bay to do a land environment plan back in 2001. And at the time, it seemed like a lot of work.
Farming in essence is a long-term game, it's not a short-term game.
We've got a lot of wetlands, a lot of retired areas, but as we retired those areas, we found more productive areas as we put more investment into them.
We're actually going back to a lot of deferred grazing model where we'll shut up country and basically not go back to that country until 5 months later. It's really adding massive insurance into our farming system around the ability to have feed when no one else does, or when the climate throws a couple of curveballs our way, you know.
I think what I see here is the Absoloms are in fact continuing to follow in some of the kaitiaki values of our early Māori in terms of looking after the land and the rivers, and I think it's in really good state for the future.
It's exciting. There's so many opportunities in that green space that we just haven't yet grabbed hold of, and they're not as threatening as they might feel. The environmental challenge is something that we continue to embrace. The feed efficiency testing is all about initially lowering our cost of production, but the impact on the environment from lowering that cost of production is ability to lower methane emissions at the same time, so they eat less, they emit less.
The hard work part of it is actually the enjoyment of it, because nothing comes easy.
It's a real privilege to grow up in this part of the world, let alone to have your own piece of it.
Dad would be extremely proud, you know. I think the one thing he said before he died was that the one thing he missed was seeing the next generation. Ultimately, we've got to allow them to live their lives and do what they do, and you can't control them. It's really a case of letting them do what they want to do, and sometimes that's pushing them away for a period to go and live and learn and have a whole bunch of experiences doing other things. So when they do get back here, they really are wanting to be here and, I suppose, take on the mantra of the next generation.
The future of farming is as exciting as it's ever been, I feel, even though there's a lot of pressure on farmers to innovate and change, a lot of environmental pressure. You either embrace it or you fight it. Our family embrace change.